Okay, namaste and welcome to Satsang. So as usual tonight, there's been a subject coming up this week, really in many different ways. So it's always worth addressing something that is coming up. Many people are asking questions about it in different ways. So I wanted to really look at this term that's quite widely used really in Satsang and awakening circles altogether, and that is non-duality. It's almost fashionable, and I remember when I was waking up, there were all these people that were into non-duality as if it was the latest fashion, but it's not often completely understood as to what it actually means. I mean, yes, we can very literally translate it into a literal meaning, but to what it means in terms of awakening, what is non-duality? And perhaps just as importantly, what isn't it? What is it not? So non-duality means literally not two, just like Advaita Vedanta means not two, that which is one. And it's easy to say not two, but to live from that oneness, to actually the full extent of what's possible as the one. It's not always obvious to us when we're waking up along the pathway. Most of us, we start out our spiritual search by feeling that we are someone trying to wake up, trying to get away from suffering, trying to realize the self. And then we may have some glimpse or some seeing or some opening up to realize that what we are is not at all what we thought we were. We're not actually a separate being, that we are something excuse me, something so much more fundamentally whole than that. The separate being was an idea that is happening inside something so much bigger that we really are. And a lot of people then begin to equate non-duality with formlessness. They say, okay, that's what that is. I know what that is. I know what I am. I've done some self-inquiry and I've come to see that I'm not a human being at all. I'm not a separate being. What I actually am is insubstantial and formless, and that can feel very, very comfortable for a while. That can be a really nice place to hang out for a while after you've been caught up in the idea for a very long time that you are this separate being who's suffering and trying to come out of that. And non-duality kind of gets this halfway meaning where it means, I am formless and I'm not responsible for any of my karma. Anything that happened while I was a separate being is just kind of not real, not true. And we almost can find ourselves avoiding any further growth by hanging out in the formlessness. And I did it myself for a while. And for a while, it was very, very nice to not be someone at all that was suffering and to just be peaceful. But non-duality really means, as we said before, oneness. And oneness cannot be the state that we're living in if there is something that we are excluding from our definition of truth. By the very fact that we're excluding something, then it is not one. There is two. There is what I'm including, what I'm calling truth, and what I'm calling falsehood. or what is real and what is illusion. So the fullest aspect of non-duality is when we have seen the absolute reality. We have seen that nothing is actually what it looks like. Everything is made of this nothingness, including everything we see and use and everyone we interact with. Everything is really this formless awareness, this self appearing to be something. We kind of have a profound seeing of that. But then the fullness of what it means to be one means that we must begin to eventually re-include everything back into our definition of what is real. So even the illusion that we perhaps discarded, the separate sense of self completely, has to be set aside to realize the formlessness that is everywhere. But then the oneness doesn't want to. The truest meaning of non-duality means not to, not even reality and illusion am I holding in my definition of what's real. And this is really the fullest emergence of love that a human being can experience, because there is nothing at that point I'm excluding. Even what I used to call illusion, separate sense of self, has to be re-included in that. And for most people, at first there is an avoidance to doing that. We really don't want to go back and look at our karmic patterns, our situations in our life that are kind of a little screwed up, or let's just say not flowing as well as they could, and go back into that from the wisdom that we now have, having seen clearly that everything is formless. And there'll be a reluctance to do that. There was for myself, but when I began to actually to do that, to see that the formless is also including the form, the someoneness, the nothingness, the nobodiness that we really are, is also inclusive of the someoneness, the sense of someone. That the absolute reality also includes the relative reality of this world, this and that, and you and me, and rich and poor, and high and low, and happy and sad, and all of that has to be re-included into it. That there is no difference between the individual soul and the absolute reality, that they are one and the same, that they are synonyms for each other. Or as they say in the East, that the jiva, the individual soul, is Shiva, that there is no difference between my sense of being someone and the Supreme Being. And that is the fullest place we can live our life from as human beings. And it's a natural outcome of realizing what you actually are. It is eventually wanting to go back into my life as I knew it, and allow the truth that we've seen to pervade through my body, my mind, my relationships, my career, my finances. Everything that makes me me is going to be gently embraced in this loving presence, this formless awareness, the self that we really are. So it cannot be one if there are two. If there's something you are still excluding, as sort of saying it's not real, it's not the truth, eventually it's going to have to be allowed back into your definition of what you are, what all this is. So we come full circle. We start off being someone on a pathway, waking up, and then we realize we're not anybody at all. And then full circle back to including the somebodyness, but from the real place of seeing that this body, all of this is made from that pure formless essence. There is no better way that we can experience life as a human being than from the conscious realization, the effortless realization, and the continuous knowingness of what we actually are, and then to go about our human lives, to fully embrace the individual way that the self is appearing as you, as your life, as your likes and dislikes, as your preferences, as your personality, as your food choices, as your music choices, what you love to watch on the TV, all of that that makes you you. You're and the unique way that the self can even express itself through a relationship. All of that is the way that the one being is appearing as your life. And the truth will really want to come back and embrace all of your humanness, or perhaps all the parts that we've been trying to get away from at first. Will have to come back and be looked at in this, the light of this awareness. And in fact, it is actually possible then. There are things in all of our lives that are impossible to heal, to come to a resolution about, from the sense that we are a separate being. There are things that are absolutely challenging to embrace, and even impossible to embrace as a separate being. And then to come back and re-embrace them from the place of wholeness, from seeing that we were always safe, that we were never actually in any danger, that we have never ultimately suffered as the absolute reality, even though it seemed extraordinarily real while it was happening. This dream of being someone, this very, very long dream that someone is all I am. We can finally embrace a healing from that place. The highest evolution that the self is capable of is as a human being, living as a human being that is appearing as a human being that's self-aware and knows its real source, knows what it actually is, and yet at the same time is absolutely embracing their humanity, absolutely embracing all that comes with that, being 100% authentic in every moment, whatever that looks like. If it's a negative emotion or some trigger happening inside the body, if it is something happening, going wrong in the outside world, something going right, all of that that makes you you is wanting to be loved by the self. And if you're not already feeling this, then it will eventually happen as as your seeing deepens. It's all right for a while to hang out in the, none of this is real, all of this is an illusion, and only the formlessness is real. And that is true, that is true. But that formlessness that is real can also appear as form. It's also appearing as all this form. And you won't feel complete totally until you've re-embraced everything that makes you you, your quirks, your perceived flaws that aren't really flaws, your character traits that you would like to release, things that you would like to develop, perhaps, whatever it is that you want to become. All of that is also included in the perfection of who you are. And seen from the formless awareness that you are, it's not a fix-it-up project. It's an expression, an emergence of love. All of us can always do more to love ourselves, our humanity. And I would just urge you really to see if there is anything that you are rejecting as not me or not real, and see if you can re-include that back into your wholeness. The best experience we can have is to not feel divided at all, to not feel separate to anything. And yet most of us that I come across, I did it myself as well, on the pathway, are so busy trying to reject their humanity, so busy trying to reject what makes them them, the individual but not separate way that the self is showing off as their life, as you right now. So even the minutiae of your existence, all the day-to-day things, all the seemingly routine and mundane, all the marvelous self appearing as that can be experienced in a whole different way Life as a human being isn't just something to do until we realize the self to pass the time. And it isn't just wake up as quick as we can until before the body disappears. But there is this marvelous period afterwards, after seeing clearly, of a re-embracing, a falling back in love with everything that makes you you, and an enjoyment of living your life without any unworthiness anymore, without any sense of lack, without any ability to suffer. Even if an emotion comes up or some trigger happens, you still won't be suffering. And I kind of feel that we have a privilege, a right, or even a responsibility to be an example of what a human being can be. That we can be completely connected with an intimate and effortless knowing of what we really are, and also fully being the human being that the self is appearing as. Really embracing your life, your relationships, your work, whatever it is that makes you you. So things will come, things will be healed, things will resolve, things that perhaps we've been running away from, things that we've been trying to get some distance from, dysfunctional parts of our life as a human being. The call of love, the urge of the one is to express itself completely in all of our existence, everywhere. It will want to spread itself out, to live consciously every moment as this means to allow it to fully pervade your life, to allow this changeover from trying to get something from other beings, from our life, from our work, from our relationships, to an open expression of love, to see what love wants to look like as your life, to see what the one wants to appear as, how beautiful your life can become when lived from the conscious realization. It's not a mistake or something to just be tolerated that you have a human existence. Perhaps we don't often really stop and take a look at how lucky we are that we can even have this kind of conversation with each other in Satsang. In no other species on this planet can the self recognize itself like you're doing. And then, even better than that, for it to live a human life, not fearing an end to that life, not being able to suffer, being an example of abundance, being an example of compassion and peace and freedom and all the things that safety, security, all the things that we want as human beings. So can you fall back in love with who you are as a human being a little bit more? Can you embrace your quirky bits a little bit more? Can you give yourself a break and start to see yourself as the self would, that there aren't any mistakes about you at all? They only perhaps looked like those, like flaws from our idea that we were a separate being trying to feel more secure, trying to feel more loved. What's it like to live your life feeling completely and utterly worthy and loved and accepted and safe? What can that look like? And aren't you excited to experience what that actually can be? How far can your life be an expression of this love? There is no limit at all upon it. Non-duality is not just a stage that we go through or something we're into. It's the ultimate seeing that there is nothing other than the one. There is not two, not even truth and illusion in the end. There is what I thought I was and what I've seen myself to be, and they're both the same thing, expressing itself different ways. And there is nothing on this planet that we can experience that feels better than being completely unable to exclude anything at all. There is no experience you can have as a human being that is going to beat knowing what you are and actually living consciously as that. There is no way to make a difference in the world more than waking up and living as that in your own unique way. There is an individual way the self wants to appear as you. You're not a mistake. You're absolutely here out of love. You're born out of love. And your whole existence can be an expression of that love. So if there's any avoidance happening in your spiritual pathway, if there is any hiding out in the formlessness, after a while that will get too small also. We want to re-embrace the form and everything that makes you you. And then you end up right back where you started, completely, totally happy. And just being authentically whatever you are in this moment. If you're happy, you're happy. If you're frustrated, you're absolutely frustrated. If you're in pain, you're in pain. You cannot deny any part of your existence from there. There is absolute peace. You cannot be broken from there completely. It is absolutely worth taking the time to re-embrace who you are, to be the fullest expression of the one that you can be. That the supreme self doesn't exclude anything. It cannot say either or in the end. Everything is it. Even the illusion that we have previously discarded as unreal is it. Self does not even know any categories of real or unreal. Those are the final discernments of the mind or ego, and eventually they'll have to be dropped in the fullness, in the one. When you actually start to re-embrace all that you are, when you really open to that, it won't be a frightful experience. It'll be a wonderful kind of rebirth, an emergence of a different way completely. For too long, awakening has been viewed as an end point, and it's really a beginning of living through the form as the formless completely. So I hope I've at least inspired you to even look at and see if there's something that you are rejecting about yourself, something that you are still avoiding looking at. Everything that you allow back into your wholeness will give you an increased sense of completion, of fulfillment, of peace. It's well worth doing. Okay. Okay, if anyone would like to ask a question or to share something, you're more than welcome to. I have a hand up already. Just to explain how to do that if you want to. If you're new to Zoom, you can click on participants and scroll down to the bottom and click on the blue raise hand icon to let me know that you're waiting. Okay, so we'll start with Sharon.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Hi. I had a clear seeing very clear seeing on Tuesday, and it was beautiful. I could see that, you know, that I'm not really, I'm human, but yet I'm just the front of me. And I wrote you and told you that I just felt like I hit the lottery. And then yesterday I spent the day with my friend whose son passed away. And that was very, I tried to deny what I was feeling because, of the seeing on Tuesday, but what I was really feeling was immense grief for her and probably for me, because my son has that disease that took her son. So, I wasn't judging, but my mind, the ego went back and said, well, you might feel like you're this, but you know that if your son would die, that you'd be ruined. The mind just does that with me. It's conditioned since he's 17. He's going to be 37. He's doing great. He was here today. Now, here's what's weird. And I know I'm not crazy. I know that this happens, and I know, but these are crazy things that are going on. On his text message, it says the true goal of life was sent to him. And he thought I sent it because it's from me, but it was Rupert Spira. I never even turned on Rupert Spira. Now, this has happened before. I think you might remember Regina's. I was and I got a message from Nisargadatta Maharaj. So it is probably the self saying to me, you're going to be okay, because I'm not crazy. Obviously anybody that's out there is going to think we're crazy, that we actually think that we know that we're doing this. I understand in the world of form, but as the self's trying to help me here. It has to. Why would it send him a Rupert Spira? He's saying, Mom, you had to do it. No, I didn't even look at Rupert Spira. I was listening to you. I was on the phone. I was walking my dog. I was with my son. So, I know it. How do you look at that? Like, once I mentioned this, and Regina actually had said that when she received that book from NTI, she was also, because that just showed up in her, this voice, that was like the Course in Miracles. And then I had another situation where a stone was dropped at my house and it said God. And I'm like, well, okay, what is this? And so I guess you can't answer it, right? Because it's not my mind. I know what I did today.
These things just happen. Stranger things happen every day, and even stranger the more you wake up. That no logical explanation for them really, except that they happened. They're just sometimes little miracles just occur. And going back to what you were saying about your friend, it's
it's so smart.
In that moment when you were with her and there's that pain coming up, the embracing the oneness that I was just talking about is totally being that completely, however you are in that moment, not trying to deny at all. If this is how I am in this moment completely, and I'm going to completely be that. Some people have asked me, like, how would you be if something like that happened, if something happened to someone close to you, would you grieve or not? And it's like, I don't know. I absolutely don't know how I would be in that moment. But however I was, I would be it 100%.
Yeah, and 100%, I'm just brokenhearted for her. We're very close.
Yeah.
And we've gone through this addiction together. Her son was an alcoholic. My son was addicted to drugs. So, it's like that the mind was beating her up. She was saying she was a bad mother. She never did the right thing. It was, she has a lot under her. She's done the Course in Miracles. She does a lot of, what non-duality. And she's Byron Katie. She's gone to her school twice. So she knows, but yet the loss, the shock.
All you can do in those moments is to be as authentic as you can be about how you're feeling, and in your lack of denial, in your complete being what you are, you're going to give her, through your energy, more permission to be how she is, to stop trying to change herself constantly. And it's not even that great pain of grief is bearable when we're not trying to reject ourselves in that moment. That I shouldn't be like this is what's going on inside, isn't it? And if, okay, well, this is how I am right now. When you be authentically who you are in this moment without any idea of what that should look like, then you're giving everyone around you the best possible chance to experience that as well, to be completely who they are in this moment. And that's a gift that we can give to everyone, isn't it, that we encounter, whether we know them well or we're just passing them by in the street. It's, you know, it's always an opportunity to we've had lots of examples of not being who we are in this moment, trying to absolutely get away from that, and we can be an example to an inspiration perhaps to others around us, especially in those painful moments. That it's we've no idea how we're going to be in that moment or who we're going to be. We'll just be it completely, and there's a peace in that, no matter what kind of negative emotions are coming up.
I don't know that they were even negative. What I did was, because she's done this work, I asked her, you know, I told her about the retreat I had. You know, we talk about other things too. And then I turned her YouTube on with stories, and she loved it. And so she asked me to send it to her so she could, you know, go to sleep with it. And, you know, I didn't deny that he didn't die, because, you know, in the dream, that's what they say. But, you know, the vocabulary that we use is not necessarily, you know, the thing that I had posted about that doctor, you know, how I said we have to change the narrative, because people really don't die. They just transition. You know, we really have, the story sets us up for a lot of grief. That's what it does.
In the end, you know, allowing someone to be who they are is just allowing them to be who they are, not saying any should or shouldn't about them either. You know, where the self is as that being, how it's living, what it's believing about itself is absolutely right where they're supposed to be in this moment. Who are we to say that we know better than them? We don't, do we? I don't know how I should be in the next moment, so how can I say how anyone else should be? It's just not possible, is it, to know?
No, thank you so much. And yeah, I just think it's funny that they sent it to John, because that's what's been on my mind. Like, oh, you had a seeing, and you know who you are, and you know who he is. But now if he dies, and like, I'm like, you know, of course I'm not doing that. The mind's doing that. The mind's just choosing to make sure that I don't get away with it.
Mind is always trying to take a snapshot, a picture of the self, isn't it? Oh, now I know what it is. Now I know how I should be. Now I know what the self is, and it's just, it'll do that for a while, but there's a beautiful openness in just not knowing at all who or what we're supposed to be. You can't say how anyone should appear, and no, you know, that there's a freedom in that. No idea what's going to come out of my mouth in the next second.
Right, and the
it's
thing that
authentic.
the questioning is really helping me.
Good.
The questioning opens the mind, and it. So, you know, in any case, I know I'm not failing. Obviously, the self wants to do certain things with me. But, you know, my ego is very used to failure. It simply is. So, you know, I'm laughing, crying, and I'm a mix of everything. And I just want to thank you. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Lovely. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we'll go to Glenda.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Yeah, the question, what am I rejecting, as you spoke, was really stirring in me. And a belief that I have, you know, what am I rejecting? And if I get specific and use an example in my life, in the past few years, and terrible terror and fear has come up. I am getting old and going to die. It's been horrendous, to the point that has frozen me, made me ill, all that. But at the same time, it has been the greatest gift. So what am I rejecting? I am still rejecting the idea that I'm getting older and I'm going to die. Somehow I want to stop it. But then this, as you spoke, this belief came up about, as I do all these practices and everything, I'm still believing that if I awaken, it will save me. So there's this, it's keeping me in the duality, so to speak. I'm still looking to be saved.
That's okay though, isn't it? It's like, you know, you might be in satsang because you want to be saved from fear and from death. And also because you want to know what the truth is about yourself. And it's totally okay to have both of those motivations there. You know, there's space in you for both of those. None of us would ever end up in satsang if we only wanted the truth. You know, we all end up here because we want to avoid. For me, the whole idea that I was going to die at some point was just the only thing I couldn't ignore. It was just terrifying, so much so that it pushed me all the way to transcend it. You know, so if I'd have waited for some desire to arise to just look at what's true, I probably would still be waiting. You know, we all come because of the urge to avoid an ending, really, or suffering as well, you know, along the way. So it's totally okay if that's one of the motivations, completely. However, so having said that, we can always embrace that more. Okay, you know, especially fear or something like that, we tend to push it away, don't we, to some degree. We can always embrace it a little bit more. What is this trying to show me? And I think in the end, I just got so tired of being scared. It was like, okay, I'm going to find out if there's another way to operate here where I'm not scared, ever.
Yeah, but with your talk, I really became aware that, you know, I've got these practices, accepting everything, loving all this.
Except this bit over here. Yeah, except this bit, yeah.
But there's an agenda to those practices still. And can I accept that too? And yeah.
There's some part of you that just wants to know what's true, isn't there? And there's some part of you that's trying to get somewhere. And both of those are fine. Absolutely fine. You know, of course, ego is going to be doing what it does. It's going to be desperately trying to avoid pain and to feel better. You know, and the self is just kind of trying to recognize itself. And for a very long time, both of those were present within me. You know, looking for it. Something was desperately trying to get away from pain and get to that end point where there'd be no more fear. And that was a completely part of the journey as well. Just being aware that we're, you know, for me, I had this allowing everything to be, you know, and including it all, but there was this big corner of my psyche where I like, accept that stuff over there, not that stuff. I'm not going to look at that stuff. That can't come back in to the wholeness because it's just too painful. You know, there's some avoidance going on there, but to see what you're avoiding means it's already starting to be welcomed back in. Just to see it is already that process beginning, isn't it?
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for sharing that. Lovely. Steve?
Helen.
Hiya.
Are you doing all right?
I am. Thanks to you.
Good. Not too bad. I've heard you talk about this before, but not in tonight. It will more depth. You like a topic. And I had another question before you came on, and I suppose that they do tie in somewhere, but I'm not sure which end to go in from. I think you were talking to us this morning to Eileen. You were talking to Eileen on one of your tapes. And you were taking her into a quiet place and asking her, finding the silence, and I followed you through. And I thought, I got right, you know, I got in there. I was doing thing with you, but what I noticed when I was in the silence, there's an I noticing the silence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like duality, isn't it? Is it?
Depends what that I is.
Here we go. Go on. Well, that's what I'm trying. Is that I? Is there something beyond the I? That's what I'm trying to work out.
Have a look at what that I actually is, if you can. There's a sense of me and the silence. There's a sense of that, right? There seems to be two. But if you're sort of really investigating what is the I, You know,
Well,
is
when
there
I'm in this,
really? Yeah.
go into it first, then investigate the eye, and you'll
Yeah, we can
find
do it
nothing.
right now if you want to.
Go on then.
So right now, can you hear the silence? Can you tune into the silence?
Yeah.
Okay, and can you find the sense of I that's in the silence or that's listening? There's a sense I'm listening to the silence. That there's a me and it. Can you,
Watcher.
what is that me when you actually look at it? That I. What really is it? What can you tell me about it?
It just seems to be aware of everything.
So this I is aware. Yeah. And can you find where it is in the silence? Is it in the silence or outside the silence, or can you not really say?
I feel like it's where we came in this, in a sense. But I'm looking at it all from it.
Is there really an I and the silence when you look? Can you actually find two when you look?
No, not really. I feel a bit of something in my heart area.
There's a body there, yeah. There's a body in the
It's like
silence,
a bit
sensations
of
going on. Yeah.
And I thought, well, you can't call that you. See, behind there, there's a few ribs and a heart, and it's not you. So I've sort of thought it through.
So we're not discarding or discounting that there's a body in the silence, but is there an I in the silence when we look?
Just watching. See,
There's something watching, yeah. Is something that's watching, is it an entity? Is it a separate being, or is it something different? Does it have edges or a shape?
no, yeah.
And is it different to the silence? It's absolutely okay if this question, if the answer to it isn't 100% clear. The question itself, just to look and, well, is this I actually separate to the silence? I've always kind of assumed it is, but when I actually look, I'm not so sure anymore that it's actually separate. And the goal of this question is not to have an epiphany or to be able to say right now, just the question is undoing this assumption that we have. That there's a me and the silence, me listening to the silence. When I actually look, slow down and look, it's not quite how I've assumed it to be when I really look.
You're right, and it's something I've already seen. It's like I forgot about. You sort of slip back in.
It's how it is for all of us, don't worry.
Yeah.
First, because, you know, if I can see there isn't really a me, there's only the silence and my body when I actually look. That is quite different to how we thought it was. We thought there was a me living in this body that's surrounded by the greater silence or something. And then when we see that that's not the case and we actually experience that, something inside is going to want to see that again and again, and something else isn't going to. Something else is going to try to, okay, that we've done that now, we don't need to do that again.
That's exactly what's happened, yeah. Past that now, move on.
Yeah, next, yeah. So anything that we discover about ourselves that is out of or opposite to or very different from what we've always thought was correct, we're going to have to forget a little bit. And we all go through this process of seeing it and then wandering away a little bit, and we're kind of doing this. We're we're going this way, and then life or mind takes us off this way, and we have to kind of bring ourselves back. But each time we wander off the pathway, it's less and less, course correction needed to get us back, right on. So you might forget the first time for 6 months or something, and then 6 weeks the next time you forget, and then 6 days, and then 6 minutes eventually. Something is less and less enamored with what I think is happening, and more in love with what is actually true about me, isn't it? Sort of less and less wanting to delude itself or something like that.
But I've also felt it in other areas. I'm going on leaps and bounds. Could that be possible? Or am I kidding myself here?
No, it's
Okay.
totally possible. It stands to reason that all of us are going to have to really sort of put some consistent effort in, not like hard work, but reminding ourselves to look again and confirm again, and because our habit of thinking is going to go right back into separation, the me and the silence, or me and something else, that back into dualistic thinking, if we don't remember to remember what we've seen. So that's the natural process for all of us. We forget, we see something beautiful, if we forget it for a while, we really start to suffer again. We come back to see again. Right, now seeing, I'm not going to forget again. But we do. But the time in between the forgetting and the coming back are shorter and shorter each time, hopefully.
Here's another question now, and I was just saying, over the last week or two, I told you last week or week before that, I got a bit of a low energy going on. And a bit of fear crept back in, and I had a bit of upset during the week. But I've stood my ground on that. So I think I'm doing really well here. I'm still not feeling right bright inside. But I've stood my ground. I've asked the questions: is it true, not safe? Am I already here? Blah blah blah. And I said, this has popped up now. Obviously not. It's in my head, but it's not true. I'll just.
But can you see? You may have handled this better than last time. You may have remembered the question sooner than last time. You may not have gone as far into the feeling as last time. There's always progress, isn't there, moving forward?
I want to know if I listened to that today. It wouldn't have been there. I sort of feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. But when I looked at that, I thought, when you did it today, I sort of got it. I got it when I was this morning, really. I thought, you've gone a long way back here. What's happened here? It's like when I first met you.
It's the same for me, that I knew that if I didn't stay plugged in, I was going to drift off. And sometimes even when I was still plugged into Satsang, I was drifting off. So it's like, I'm not even going to try to decide. I'm going to completely just stay plugged in until I stop forgetting completely, to stop imagining myself to be a separate being anymore, or something like that. So I've completely lost that ability somehow to dream anymore about myself. And I even set aside a little time each day to confirm what we just did, that exercise. I can't really find a someone in the silence. When I really look, there is nobody being aware. There's just awareness and a body. I really, really try to find who's resting in the stillness. There isn't anyone. There's just stillness. And that.
Yeah.
I just did it every day until it was such a habit that I couldn't forget.
I'll have a look at that, because I'm thinking when I've been going into silence, I've only been going up to ankles. You know what I mean? I get the feel in the sense, but I haven't been going any deeper than that. I ain't questioned that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's natural now. The desires come into wading a bit further into it. Yeah. Good. Up to the neck this time or something.
Up to the neck. Yeah.
Lovely. Thanks.
See you later on.
Sophie?
Hello, Helen.
Hiya, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And I have felt massively different since Tuesday night in the sitting sense. It was very, very powerful, and I don't want to really talk about that now because it's a bit mysterious. I'm not trying to understand it really. So,
well, just like we were saying with Steve just briefly, that to because we were asking the same question, really, weren't we, in the course on Tuesday, and all this resistance was coming up for you, and there wasn't a clear answer to that question or a knowingness. But do you remember we said just the question is doing the work, just the willingness to see, am I actually somebody tuning into the silence or the noumenon or whatever we're calling it? And just that willingness to see, to be with that resistance as it's coming up is evidence of that seeing deepening. And you might have an aha moment, oh, there isn't anyone there, there's just the silence. But that's secondary anyway. What we want more is this quietness, this peacefulness, that contentment that's coming in the background more, as you just said. That's evidence for me that it's working. And you know, whether you get an actual answer, an aha moment when we're doing it together, is really irrelevant. It's the willingness to look, isn't it, that's very, very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, what was quite interesting, just as a story, is that afterwards, that session and all of that, there was still so much resistance. I just came home and was like, just went to bed. You know, I just couldn't, like, my body just went, no.
I've done enough now. Yeah, I've had enough.
I just cannot function anymore. But it was utter resistance still. But it was just like, I can't. But that's okay. It was fine. It was part of that kind of working through or whatever. And then since then in meditation, it's like slowly, like a mist, slowly starting to kind of clear. But as I said, I don't want to make it into anything, because
it'll just be happening. It'll just, every time you look, it'll just be more and more obvious.
Yeah.
That there isn't a separate self, and there never was. That'll just be, first time you say it, it's like, oh my God, it's just not there, you know.
Yeah.
And then it just goes to a point, well, it's just obviously not there and never has been, and no big deal, and it's just normal then. In the meantime, there is going to be a little resistance to looking, because it is the most prominent assumption that all human beings have, isn't it? I'm me here. This is where I am, and nowhere else. And so we're completely going against that assumption, which is believed by every single one of us. Nobody gets away with it, do they? Nobody just kind of, you know, the first thing they say to the parents is, did you know I'm everywhere? You know, it's just not like that, is it? So we're going to have this resistance, but we don't have to battle with that. It's just to let it come up. You know? So
yeah. If I can ask about something slightly different, I think it's to do with causality. You know that I was sharing about my mother and having that kind of energetic relationship. I think we even went through something around that at some point, and I really expressed myself from truth with her, and through doing that, things kind of moved on. But then, and I wasn't actually speaking to her, but then I just decided I'd speak to her. I just had this sense to speak to her, having written my kind of feeling and whatever, expressed myself from what I felt was true to say. And I said, how are you? And she said, I'm not great. Yesterday I just, she went over on her ankle and has sprained her leg really badly, like she has to be in a boot for 5 weeks and stuff. And I kind of feel responsible, because I know on an energetic level that it was to do with she couldn't, I don't want to make up a story, but there's a sense that she couldn't stand in what she was standing in anymore. And she, through kind of meeting me in that kind of exchange, something had to give. And it's almost like she can't stand in that force, because I kind of met her in it and challenged her in it, kind of lovingly as I could, but it was also quite straight and direct. It wasn't kind of mamby-pamby kind of loving. And then she has this kind of accident, and that is something that I've seen a lot in my life, that kind of cause and effect, that it, you know, there are consequences when there's that truth. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't have had it and it's wrong and it's bad, but I am aware that that is a kind of causality from that engagement.
You can't cause anything to happen to her. You absolutely can't, because that would be two beings. Okay. We can be as authentic as we want to be, as we can be in any moment, and the words that come out of you and the actions are going to be different. They might be more direct, but how that is received is always up to that person. You know, I've said some very direct things as a teacher, you know, when I've had to, and have been completely not heard. The shutters go down by someone because they just don't want to hear it. So, you know, inside, obviously consciously they do, but there's some resistance inside. So the fact that she's experiencing this thing happening is exactly what is right for her, and it's uncaused. You and her are the same being, so you can't cause anything to happen to someone else. It's just not possible. It's totally all of humanity would agree that maybe you did, you know, cause something to happen to her, but that's the essence of understanding that there is only the one being. And most we can say is your authenticness gave her an opportunity to embrace her own authenticness more. We could say you influenced, but you can't force somebody to have something happen to them. It's just not possible. And the mind will say, well, this only happened because you said that, but this may have happened to her anyway. We just don't know. There is no causal relationship between two beings like that. That is just not how it actually is in reality.
But what about if it's on the energetic level, that she's received an energy that she then had to open to in her own being, or she didn't have to, but I know it sounds like I'm speaking separation, but I'm trying to really understand.
It's always the self appearing as that separate being who really thinks it's a separate being still, and that's absolutely fine. It's always their choice, isn't it, whether to progress or not on an unconscious level. You know, I've seen people yeah, let's not go there. It's not possible for you to cause something to happen to her. It's her choice as a separate being, a seemingly separate being, whether to be more authentic in that moment or not. So this thing that happened was going to happen anyway. Perhaps your more loving direct energy gave her an opportunity that wasn't present without your energy, but you can't force something to happen to someone like that. It's just not possible.
But okay, but could I interpret it as she in her reflection, she received something that was like a challenging energy to the position she was really holding on to, and because she couldn't process it in any other way, the body just sort of went, I can't hold on to this in that way, and sort of had to let go in some form, and that's the form it took. Or is that too much of an interpretation?
Still causality we're talking about here, still very subtle. If she, you know, all things are manifestation or a vibration, a wave.
Yeah.
Where does her waveform end and yours start? How can two nothingnesses meet in the middle? How can she receive anything from you?
No.
It's very, very, I get where you're coming from, but I can't kind of let you get away with this one because it's not, I have to challenge these areas.
I know. Yeah.
What was going to happen was going to happen.
Yeah.
And the fact that it happened around you means that she has the best possible chance to have an epiphany or an aha moment. But that's either going to happen or not.
Well, she's much softer because of it. She's been
But there's
gentle.
nothing you did to cause that, either inadvertently or consciously. It's just not possible. It really seems like that. It really said, well, I said this thing and this caused that, but it's just not how it is in reality. The self is showing up as you and her.
Yeah.
You're wanting to be more truthful. She's wanting to be more truthful by virtue of the fact you find yourself in the same room together. What that means to her is going to be different to you. You know, ideas about what truth is. And she expresses it in the highest way she can, and so did you.
Right. And
try not to think about it too much.
No. Okay. I just yeah, because I know you can tell endless stories as to, you know, why anything, you know, you can make, that's the whole, the self is always doing that, isn't it?
It's the one question the self can't answer is why. There is no reason why. There is no reason why at all in that way. Each being is, the self is appearing as each being and evolving and trying to make its way through life, and whether they're aware of it or not, they're kind of always in satsang, every being, and they're always going to be challenged to look at their beliefs. They're going to be given opportunities to look at their beliefs, but sometimes a physical manifestation like that is the only way it can show up if the being isn't sort of consciously working with the beliefs. But that was something that was going to happen anyway. You know, it was either going to happen or it wasn't, and there's no causal factor from you in that. It's a very fashionable idea that, you know, but it's just not true. In reality, there is only the one, not two.
Yeah, well,
but you saw that you were kind of you kind of saw that there might be a subtle story there. So that's the exciting thing for me, you know, that something wanted to say, oh, I did this, I caused this accidentally or something. You know?
Yeah, you know, I'm completely aware that it's a story, and I have no idea, and that's there's a reluctance to try and make it into a story, but there's also like just the as life moves, you know, the exchange of energies, that we as one affect each other's kind of vibration. I mean, you're affecting me right now.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
Not you as Helen, but the oh, I don't know, it's going to start compartmentalizing it.
These are where these ideas really get us stuck, you know, that I'm sitting with this teacher and this teacher's causing some shift in me, therefore I need to keep, you know, and that's how it seems, but it's really just that the truth in you recognizes the truth in me already. That's the resonance. What you already are recognizes itself. Firstly in other, you know, in the teacher, and there's an idea that we're separate, then that's transcended. I can't cause anything to happen to you. Absolutely cannot. It's like sitting by the fire. You're cold and you come in from the cold and you're shivering and there's a fire going and you sit around the fire. The fire doesn't cause you to get warm, does it? The fire is just warm. It's not doing anything to you, is it? Try not to think about it. It'll just, all of a sudden, it'll just a gentle question. What's it like to really get this on a, you know, on a deep level? Your mind will go around in circles forever on it.
Well, there's just this, you know, in the sense realm, the fire is heat, and the heat interacts with this body. And
but is the fire doing something to you? Is it making you warm? Is it actually trying to cause a change to you? Or is it just its nature to be hot, to be, hot in terms of temperature?
Yeah, and I happen to be in front of it, and so there's this natural.
Yes, and a transference of heat, you could say, but it's not cause and effect. That would be two things. Keep at it. You're doing really good. You're doing really good. Lovely. Don't think about it too much.
No, I won't. And you have put me at ease in terms of potential kind of guilt story, but
Yeah.
I knew that's not true. But
if that were true, nobody would come to Satsang, because I was really, really peaceful, and then I got on Satsang and I thought, oh, it's going to be so nice. And then when you started talking, you just brought up all this stuff inside me, and it's like, I was fine until I got on Satsang. But it's not it's not that I'm causing anything. It's just that the truth begins to recognize itself as the student, and then all the stuff that's out of alignment with that truth begins to rise to the surface. That's what's happening with your mom, but you're not doing something, you're not causing anything.
But it just happens through the being in that presence, like being in front of the fire. It just happens that I would get warm, or it just happens that there's a transformation through that.
If you strike a tuning fork in a room, and if I strike a tuning fork, and there's another tuning fork here, the one I strike will seemingly cause the other one to start singing, resonating. But it's not so, is it? The tuning fork isn't doing something to the other one. There's just a resonance that starts to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that's the easier way to look at it. Yeah, lovely.
Okay. Yeah.
Clear
Yeah.
as mud.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sergio?
Hi, Helen. Good afternoon.
Hiya.
Good evening. The question is, from
Please tell me you've got an easy
Tuesday-
question for me.
Huh?
Yeah, no, I'm joking.
Tuesday, it was like finally I got the supposedly an understanding of lesson 3 of dissolving the ego course. And I've been practicing that, and I was so excited even this morning as I went out to a restaurant to have breakfast in this somewhat busy place, and I was able to check who was listening to the silence or to the beingness or the I-ness. And then now here I come to Satsang today, and then I was feeling that I was drifting and overcoming humanity. And then listening to you today is like, okay, you go to the self, and then you have to come back and love and embrace your humanity. So my mind is going like, how will I do that? I was just about coming out of this sense of someoneness. So I don't know if my question is clear. How to embrace again something that it feels that I'm overcoming.
So we're not embracing again the fact that we're a separate being, but we are embracing the way that the self is appearing as a human being. It's appearing as a human being as you, isn't it? And to love the self means to fully embrace the self means to embrace all the ways that it's appearing. So it can be experienced as that silence, or it can be experienced as your thoughts, your emotions, everything that makes you you. And you can there'll be this re-embracing of that just begins to occur, wanting to resolve bits of your life that doesn't function so well and sorting stuff out. And the clearer that we see that there never was a separate being, the more we're able to embrace that there seems to be a separate being. and we're not kind of trying to, if we still think that separate being is there, we'll be trying to get rid of it. You know, the very fact I'm trying to push my ego away, it should be telling me that I still think it's actually there, when really it's just a bunch of thoughts and emotions and kind of all of that. So with a clearer seeing each time, on one hand, that I never was a separate being, there's an ability to re-embrace, okay, well, I am the self that's everywhere, showing up as this human being, appearing to be this human being. You know, no different than, okay, it is that sofa, it is this laptop, it is this body, it is that body, it's everything, everywhere. And I'll appreciate the shapes it's taking. It can look like a table, it can look like a flower, it can look like a mountain. It can also look like you. And what does it mean? What is it? How is it appearing as you? And there's a kind of an opening up, well, you know, re-embracing of not just what the self is, but also how it's appearing. It's nothing at all, and yet it can appear to be something. So, okay, if I really love the ocean, I'm going to also embrace the waves as well, because they are part of the ocean. They seem to be different. They're changing shapes all the time, and they're coming and going and all of that. But it's not, the waves are different to the ocean, and the human being isn't different to the self. It is the self looking like, taking the shape of a human being. So we stop rejecting the form and saying that is not the self. Okay, that is also the self, actually. I'm starting to see that clearer. You know, it's not actually, you're not actually a human being, but you are the self appearing to be a human being. And everything is started to be embraced in that seeing. Everything is the self. I mean, absolutely everything. Everything is God right in front of you, showing itself to you in disguise. You know, and including you right there, right as you are right now. That's the divine showing up as you. You kind of have to start to embrace it when you look at it like that. You know, it's like, wow, I'm not just the me I thought I was. I'm so much more. Even with my, you know, things I'd like to let go of and things I'd like to, you know, I'd like to be more confident. I'd like to be this, that, and the other, and I'd like to get rid of that. And right as you are right now, that is the self showing up as that. That is the divine appearing as you. You kind of have to fall back in love with yourself when you look at it like that for any length of time. What a wonderful sculpture it's made as you, as your life. It's kind of a living shape it's taking for a while, isn't it? As each one of us. Not actually separate, but seems to be.
All right. Very well.
It doesn't really answer your question, but hopefully it's kind of, yeah.
I'll re-listen and work out somehow.
It's the totality of loving the formlessness is that it can also appear as form. That it somehow it does that. Somehow it looks like this whole planet and everyone on it and all the rest of the universe. So if I really love the self, I also kind of have to fall back in love with the manifestation again. And first and foremost, the manifestation of me, the bits of me that are moving and changing and becoming and evolving and all of that. Yeah. It'll just happen. It'll just happen anyway. Yeah. Fantastic.
Thank you.
You guys are really making me work tonight here. Yeah. Okay. We shall leave it there for tonight. Thank you. Namaste.